आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम। नगर नगर ये ग्राम और ये गलियारे, भरने इनमें नव जीवन के उजियारे। नगर नगर ये ग्राम और ये गलियारे, भरने इनमें नव जीवन के उजियारे। बार बार हम दोहराते हैं यही कसम, यही कसम, यही कसम। आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम। हमें हटाना घर घर से अंधियारा है, हमें तोड़नी पाखंडों की कारा है। हमें हटाना घर घर से अंधियारा है, हमें तोड़नी पाखंडों की कारा है। सच को कहने वाली चलती रहे कलम, चलती रहे कलम। आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम। कदम मिलाकर नर नारी सब और बढ़े, ज्ञान और विज्ञान नए सोपान चढ़े। कदम मिलाकर नर नारी सब और बढ़े, ज्ञान और विज्ञान नए सोपान चढ़े। देना है संदेश यही हमको हरदम, यही हमको हरदम। आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले हम, आशाओं की किरण जगाने वाले हम, जन जन से संपर्क बढ़ाने वाले।
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Kulveen Trehan. I teach at University School of Mass Communication Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University. My areas of interest are advertising, integrated marketing communication, corporate communication, advocacy campaigns, and social media. So today, I welcome you all to the second session of All India PR and Mass Communication Orientation Program, a 15-day program which has been initiated by Public Relations Society of India, an academic initiative for knowledge sharing on various domains of integrated brand communications for students all across the country. Many congratulations, Dr. Ajit Pathak and his team, for such an incredible orientation program, very well conceptualized and thought of. So today, in this session, I will deliver a talk on innovative executions and creativity in integrated marketing communications. So while we talk about innovative executions and creativity in marketing communications, it is time to go down the memory lane. Let's take a trip down the memory lane before we look at the various concepts and frameworks which guide this futuristic proposition of integrated marketing communication in India. And let's take that trip down the memory lane with one of the longest running campaigns in integrated communications in India. And I'm talking about the Incredible India campaign, which has been running since 2001. Of course, an example of a successful integrated marketing communication campaign we have seen in the country. Let's say I am Meera and I am reading a newspaper early in the morning with my morning cup of tea, and I encounter a full page advertisement which says the mystic charms of Meghalaya, the rains of Meghalaya, incredible India. Or maybe I'm Joy, who's just come out of his sports practice session and he's flipping the television channels to watch IPL. And there he sees a television commercial which is talking about the natural beauty of Kerala. Welcome to the God's own country, Aturaniya Bharat, incredible India. Or maybe you are Sarah, who's just boarded a red bus in London, where the exteriors of the bus shows a yogic posture who's bending backwards with a tagline which reads, Welcome to 3000 BC, when lives were healthier. Incredible India. Not just London, across the world we see a lot of billboards, a lot of poll kiosks, a lot of various variations in television, outdoor, and digital media on airports in Spain, lounges in the Middle East, and Paris. Not just that, the Incredible India campaign is right up there at the Times Square in New York as well. So what we see are a lot of advertisements above the line, below the line, events which are being organized by various universities in country, and also events for the global diaspora to present one idea, one single theme, and that is India as a destination for tourism for domestic and international travelers with an idea of unity in diversity. That India is a land of spiritual diversity, geographical diversity, and cultural diversity, symbolizing through the ethos of presentations and showcasing various parts of geographies in the country. So this particular campaign not only received wide accolades in terms of various awards at Emmys, Ebbies, and Cannes advertising festivals, but also received a lot of acknowledgement for its marketing initiatives, for its digital interventions, its website for that matter, use of social bots in a positive way on its website to check out what are the various tourist packages available on destination is one such integration we come across. So this is the world of integrated marketing communication, where above the line, below the line, events, online, offline, on ground, everything converges together and moves towards defining, proposing, and disseminating one voice, one message, the world of integrated marketing communication. And that is perhaps what the journey of integrated marketing communication across the globe has been. The journey where We break the silos of advertising and PR and delve deeper into understanding that when standalone advertising or public relations alone can be limited, cannot be sufficient for a particular brand, which requires much more in terms of coordinated, consistent, and creative voices through communication and initiatives of marketing in order to create a brand, a full-fledged brand. We must understand, students, that we are living in the world where brand value and brand equity are the measurable variables which have come. We've moved away from the idea of just creating awareness or creating visibility for a particular brand or through a public relations campaign alone, which looks at the idea of building perception or creating a favorable image for a particular brand. We've moved away from these silos of independent advertising and standalone public relations to create equity, to create value for a particular brand, which creates a sustainable product consumer relationship in times to come. We're trying to look at a brand life cycle in a more reframed manner, wherein we're looking at elongated brand life cycles, wherein brands can leapfrog from one market to another, or brands move from existing consumer bases to finding new consumer segments. And that ways they broaden their extensions, where brands are not just limited to serving one particular goal of serving one particular target, but they're serving multiple markets, multiple audiences through multiple channels or media conduits. Right? So, this is the world of integration which we're talking about. So, while exploring this world of integrated communications, it is also very important to see how integrated marketing communication is placed in the global world. So when I was trying to delve deeper into what kind of choices do students, postgraduate students, make in terms of their specializations, what do they opt for when they have this freedom of choice to go for a major? Do they like integrated marketing communication? Do they choose advertising? Or do they like consumer behavior as a specialization? Or do they opt for corporate communication? Or are they opting for social and behavioral change communication? Or are they majorly into outreach, advocacy, and social impact? What kind of majors are the students across the world looking for? And my exploration ended up telling me that integrated marketing communication is one of the front running choices. It is one of the top two majors across the world. And this consistency is across East Asia, students of China, students of Philippines, students of Malaysia, students of Eastern Europe, students of France and Germany, along with the United States. All of them find integrated marketing communication as a very important choice while electing their majors in their postgraduate programs. So that led me to look for much deeper understanding, gaining deeper insights into what makes it such a preferred specialization. Why is IMC the new buzzword for students across the world? So when I delve deeper, when I have those conversations with the students tell me that rather than going in for this approach, limited approach of advertising and PR and corporate communication, they want to see the brand as a whole. It's the whole egg situation they want to explore. It is the holistic approach in which they can use their competencies and skills as planners, as creative conceptors, as strategists, as team players, as managers, as researchers, as advocates, as people who are driven to create measurable outcomes. So it's the input and output relationship they want to see in a far more holistic and far more consistent pattern that drives them to choose IMC over, say, advertising and PR, which have been the traditional or the conventional choices for far too long now. And that places integrated marketing communication not just as the choice of the industry, but also as the choice of the academic scholarship today. And that is why we are having this conversation on integrated marketing communication, trying to understand its components, trying to understand what led to the evolution of a phenomena which is called as integrated marketing communication. Now, from the global scholarship, we travel to India. The last decade in India belongs to the integrated marketing communication. Ever since the creative revolution of the 60s, which also coincided with a lot of creative advertising in India during the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we also saw, India moving towards integrated marketing communication in the second decade post-millennium. After 2010, lot of brands, whether they are goods, fast-moving consumer durables like edible items, slow-moving consumer goods like electrical appliances, electronic goods, home appliances, or for that matter, service sector, the telecommunication services like Airtel, Aircel, Geo, or health insurance schemes, or for that matter, even organizations and causes or the ideas which are also being branded today. All of them were looking towards integrated marketing communication as their new bandwagon, instead of creating advertising campaigns or public relation campaigns which defined them for so long, for many decades before the turn of the millennium. In fact, in the last 2 years, as the pandemic left us, limited, decapacitated in the industry, there has been a hastening of movement towards integrated marketing communication with the onset of the fourth industrial revolution in a much more rapid way. This transition from advertising to integrated marketing communication has, of course, been hastened. In fact, your traditional four Ps, that is your product, place, promotion, and package, they are now making way for newer set of Ps in which people, personalization, performance, and planet, they become hugely important as the new creative toolkit in the fourth industrial revolution. If you're looking at the industrial revolution, then if the defining movement of the first industrial revolution, what for us, the communication scholars, was the advent of the printing press and how we could mass produce, and that led to proliferation of newspaper and magazine advertising across the world, along with other forms of press like hoarding, billboard, posters, and leaflet. But in the second industrial revolution, which was of great significance, but that led to setting up of mass industries, lot of mass production, and that increased the quantum of supply, the quantum of demand, and led to a consumption-driven economy in many parts of the world, which also inspired the other developing countries later as we went in for a liberal, private, and global model in 1991 as the country. So the third industrial revolution was in terms of the evolution of communication technology, how communication technology expanded. There was an explosion of telecom revolution in the country, and that led to dissemination of communication, or at least opportunities for dissemination of communication for a particular brand at a global level. So people were reaching across countries. It was one Cadbury's reaching out to Jordan, to Jaipur, and to Jodhpur at the same time, right? So such globalization of communication with regards to consumption, with regards to brands, had started to happen with the third industrial revolution. And now we are into the fourth industrial revolution as we are deeply connected with the Internet of Things, wherein artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, cloud computing, this whole idea of big data, metadata, data mining, data-based communication, all of that is putting together a need for a synergized one voice, one message communication, which is which is continuous and which is very fluid and which serves measurable goals desired measurable goals for a particular brand, and not just creates communication which makes people laugh and people can forget it later after some time. So what we see that all of these industrial revolutions in many ways contributed to the change in the needs, interests, and motives of all the three important components of IMC, and that is the advertiser, the agency, and the audiences. The advertiser changed from being a passive observer to the kind of campaigns which were being created, let's say 25 years ago, wherein you and I will create a campaign in the creative department of an advertising agency, and the client will come into the picture much later at the time of the approvals, right? So there was no such constant agency and client relationship which exists now. The participation of the client in the new product development, in creating marketing interventions, in creating problem solutions, in creating business ideas, in creating integrated technologies to support communication or to thematically then lead on to communication, is creating a newer kind of client agency relationship. And that is again creating hotbed opportunities for IMC, or making way for IMC from, transition from IMC, from advertising to IMC far more smooth. Agencies are changing, the structure, the functional roles of agencies are far more horizontal now, they are converging, they have many more verticals. Traditional advertising agencies have given way to many IMC firms. You have Crayons for that matter, you have Omnic for that matter. Lot of newer IMC firms have come up in India, and Value 360 degree. So all of these integrated marketing communication are specialist firms which create wholesome, holistic, consistent one voice communications and do not concentrate on advertising or do not prioritize public relations. They do not have such prioritization of any one arm of IMC, but they roll out a complete integrated marketing communication campaign. Even the jargon of the industry of late has changed. Today you're using whole egg situations, you're using words like new advertising, you're using words like orchestration in branding. So there's a new language which has been brought in by integrated marketing communication, which is superseding the language which was created by advertising and PR practitioners for so long in the country. Now, when we are talking about change, primarily, this change in the country has been brought forth by changes or significant changes in two major areas, two major components. One side of the change belongs to the brand. What I mean to say is that the whole brandscape in that sense has changed. Brands are willing to roll out new product variants at very short notices. They're willing to rebrand themselves, reposition themselves. Gone are the days when a Rooh Afza or a Rasna or a Nirma will take many, many years to come out of their repetitive advertising and value positioning which they created, and then to create a line extension or maybe to create a newer narrative or a newer market footprint in their strategic choices. Gone are those days. Today, brands are very quick to create new product developments. Not only product line extensions are being created. If you look at this particular slide, you look at YY, in which they've fast expanded their product line to include different kinds of flavors in ready-to-eat noodles. They've also created new kinds of new array of edible items, like for instance, they moved away from the refined flour-based noodles to the atta noodles, and lots of such variation exists in this particular category here. And not only that, brands are not just extending their lines very quickly, they are also extending themselves. There's a lot of brand extension which is taking place. One of the classical examples we have is that of Tata. Now, Tata is also an infotech service providing company in which it provides services of information technology, people-to-people contact, softwares. It is also Tata Steel, right? One of the largest steel manufacturing companies in the country. Tata is also Tata Tea, right? It is one of the edible items that is fast moving consumer good on your shelf. Tata has also created Tata Prava. It's entered into real estate and it is providing housing at affordable prices to all of us. So the Brandscape today not only has product line extensions or faster, newer product developments, but also they have brand extensions. So when a brand wants to extend from being an edible item to being a service, or from a service to being a real estate product, you have to understand that there they want to carry forward the image they created as steel, as tea, as infotech, to become Tata Prava a real estate property now. So in doing that, IMC is a preferred choice over, say, public relations alone or digital marketing alone or advertising alone. So there, that is why, integrated marketing communication space has been created by these hugely fertile changes which are happening in the brandscape. And let me tell you, these changes in the brandscape are not just limited to these augmented brands. They also as much, being carried forward by generic brands and default brands. So all types of brands which you see in India are experimenting, are innovating, and such innovations are making an organic compulsion for communicators like you and me to go in for an integrated marketing communication approach than advertising alone or public relations alone. So this was one side of the story, the change in the brandscape which has happened in the last 2 to 3 decades. What has also happened has been the change in the consumers. The consumers too have dramatically changed. To begin with, the change was slow in the nature, the patterns of consumption, but in the last 2 years, there is a visible change in how consumers not only consume different kinds of goods and services, but also how they consume media. So when we are looking at consumers or change in consumers, as brand communicators, we are often looking at both the sides, as in their preferences, their needs or motives towards, the food items or the personal care items or the household commodities or the services or the electronic appliances or any other product of their choice, or the luxury items they are intending to buy or try. We are also looking at what kind of media are they consuming at the same time. And both these things have shown a lot of change. Of course, the change has been gradual to begin with. What has happened is there's a lot of urbanization now. A lot of people have moved to urban areas, and even in tier one and tier two cities, the digital footprint has improved in the last 2 3 years significantly to make the consumer now aware of different kinds of products they can buy. Amazonization has led to closing the gap between availability of a product to the consumer. They are bringing the consumer to the door, the product to the doorstep of a consumer, even in the hinterland, even in rural areas or semi-rural areas or smaller townships. What has also happened is there is an urban-rural mix which is now emerging, which comprises of this new age consumer who's interested in the products, who's curious about the brands, and who's likely to participate through product reviews, through suggestions and feedbacks. In that sense, quite engaged in the process of consumption, in the process of communication for consumption, which has been carried out by the brands. And that paves the way for integrated marketing communication, because only one communication vehicle may not be sufficient to target a consumer who's using different kinds of senses to engage with the product at different levels as they consume more and more media in the digital age. So this is one aspect of it. Not just the rural-urban mix, what has also changed is the nature of their occupations. We've seen considerable amount of economic mobility. We also have to factor in, the social mobility. There is an aspirational middle class which is rising, and that is leading to consumption of a variety of goods and services. So that has to be factored in, and that makes them an audience which desires consumption. An audience which is aware of what is being created, or at least interested in knowing what is being produced, what is being manufactured, what is being told to the people with regards to a particular product. So that too is an important aspect, the social mobility, their aspirational aspect of being or belonging to a better social order, besides the psychographic choices they make in terms of lifestyle, in terms of their attitude, in terms of their interests, opinions, etc., which is also, in that sense, realigning itself and naturally creating a space for integrated communication than, silos of advertising and PR. So this is a very important aspect, that the nature of consumer is changed from passive to active, from not so motivated or unaware to aware and motivated, interested at times, informed at times, engaged, and at times literate. They're quite advertising literate also when you look at their feedbacks in some parts of the country. So as a brand communicator, the onus is on us to now create communication which is holistic, and communication which is not just limited to creating brand awareness or brand visibility. We have to go beyond it, because our consumers require that kind of knowledge from us, which is beyond information. And what has also happened is that, post COVID, the effects of the pandemic has been felt, and we see a lot of change in terms of how consumers are behaving. The behavioral patterns of consumers have brought in some significant aspects to ponder upon. And that also signals perhaps the reasons why this shift to IMC is here to stay. When you see that the world, perhaps, or people across the world, have perhaps become more health conscious, they're reading more about the products because they've been at home and there has been a health epidemic. So keeping that in mind, they become more health conscious, the kind of choices they make. So it's, not just a product awareness they crave. It's about whether there is certification from Food Safety and Security Authority of India, whether whatever the celebrity endorser is claiming about a particular brand is ethical, what kind of businesses are there in terms of, whether Cadbury's, who manufactures chocolates, are they doing something beyond chocolates? What kind of company is it? What is the ethos or the vision of a particular firm? So consumers per se are now raising these questions amongst themselves. They are provoking themselves to think and provoking the others also to engage in conversation on environment consciousness, social responsibility. What kind of choices, should we make in terms of our buying patterns? Should we buy a particular brand which may serve a particular need at a point in time, but the brand is involved in unethical practices, let's say, like hiring child labor? So what should be a response? And of late, many research studies suggest that the consumers are opting to side with the brands who are either engaged in some kind of advocacy or sustainable branding practices, at least, to show their allegiance for responsible branding. And that as consumers, as a post-COVID consumer, there is a movement away from just entertainment from communication, which comes from advertising, to engagement, to informed engagement with content, which comes from the brand. So whatever branded content comes in form of any communication, the consumer is now playing, keeping a close eye on it and responding to it accordingly. So that has to be a very important, point. It is, in that sense, a benchmark for, or a signpost for us in integrated marketing communication, to see that, this is the expectation of the consumer, to make brands responsible, and we have to find ways to create convergence in communication, to create brands which are authentic, brands which are accountable, and brands which are ethical, so that ethical branding is not an oxymoron that we've been living with for some time now. Indian consumers in that sense. If you look at the new Indian consumer, so if I have to sum up the new Indian consumer, I see a category of paranoids, I see a category of pragmatics, and I see a category of Vindasias. They are consumers who remain as they are, that is the Vindasias. They are casual, they are contemporary, and they are still, they believe that advertising is about information, persuasion, entertainment, and a lot of repetition or familiarity. Whereas there are pragmatics who believe in the concept of integrated marketing communication, where the information provided by advertising should be supplemented by experience of the brand through interactive marketing practices or on ground brand activations. That is, the above the line media of print, radio, television, outdoor should be married properly to below the line media of catalogs, brochures, events, activations, and so on and so forth. So we have these new calibrations of Indian consumers today, and that creates a lot of space for potential of integrated marketing communication to be explored. And that brings us out to us to the conceptual framework of integrated marketing communication. Conceptually, integrated marketing communication, especially in the industry, is generally known in these four ways. Some industry practitioners, especially in the marketing communication departments or in the brand departments of various organizations, they like to call it 360-degree branding, right? That integrated marketing communication is an academic term, and they like to call it 360-degree branding. That is, it's a holistic communication in which every communication which you design for a specific goal or objective of the campaign will come back after completing a cycle to its starting point. So the starting point and the finishing point or the completion of the campaign remains one. It is not a linear process in which you start with one tool of communication or one objective of communication and you finish with another objective of communication. No, it is one complete campaign which is centered around one objective, one message, and you use different communication tools to create a 360-degree cycle of communication in that particular campaign. Integrated marketing communication in some academic spaces and among some practitioners as well is also called as seamless communication. That is, when you and I make campaigns, of course we know where the advertising ends and where the public relations begin, or where the public relations stops and from there the telemarketing or direct marketing or interactive marketing or digital marketing picks up, or from where the digital marketing stops and the sales promotion and personal selling takes over. We are, of course, aware of these start and stop points in between these various elements which make up the integrated marketing communication landscape. But for the audiences, the idea is to create consistent messages based on one single campaign idea so that the audiences do not feel these jerks. For them, the communication is totally seamless, that the advertising fluidly bleeds into public relations and public relations effortlessly runs into direct marketing, and direct marketing then further blends into sales promotion without any jerks, without any hiccups. Such is the fluidity that nothing should be discrete, that it's a continuous communication regardless of difference in nature, proportion, typology of the communication channel, which you may have chosen for your integrated marketing communication mix. So seamless communication is an idea which has been unanimously voted as an idea which is the bedrock of IMC in all parts of the world. IMC, when we are looking at IMC, it's been known as either IM, that is integrated marketing communication, or integrated communication in many Indian organizations, because IMC per se has not been popularized to that extent as a concept. And all of these others like 360-degree branding or SC or integrated marketing they have found more currency in the industry, and subsequently now they are finding more popularity in the academic circles as well. Though integrated marketing communication is the term which is used more frequently amongst the global academic scholarship. So integrated marketing would be, again, when you're creating a confluence, it is the melange of various communication conduits, that you create a communication mix and that you allow various personal, that is face-to-face communication channels, traditional media, use of street theater, puppetry, dance forms, other forms of participatory media, along with mass mediated communication, and then today digitally mediated communication. All of these forms, they come together to achieve the marketing goals. The goals are marketing. The goals are not communication goals. We are talking about marketing goals, and communication for marketing goals is the idea in this concept of integrated marketing communications. And of course, we cannot forget the importance of the last important term which has been used for IMC, and that is relationship marketing. Today, we are living in the worlds where brands are vying to build long-term relationship with the consumer. We all know it's very expensive to build a brand. It takes a long time to elongate a brand's life cycle. You have to introduce a particular brand, then a brand grows in its sales curve, in its consumer base, a brand matures and establishes itself. Somewhere along the line, there is some saturation also, wherein there's hardly any growth or limited growth takes place. And then the brand starts to decline. That is where you and I both come in, and we try to salvage the brand. We try to revive a particular brand by repositioning it, by introducing various forms of brand extension and line extensions. So there is a relationship. It's a very, very expensive, proposition today. So this relationship between the product and the consumer is of great importance. And since this relationship is very important, whatever marketing initiatives we do with regards to development of a new product idea or a new promotional idea or a new communication mix, whatever we intend to do is intended towards creating a relationship or serving the existing relationship between a particular product and a consumer. So this idea of relationship marketing is very important, and that is something which many campaigns today, if you look at campaigns of Coca-Cola, the small machines campaign, which created quite a furor because of the way it could bring connectedness with the brand of both the nations, India and Pakistan, in one go. So that was a classic case of relationship marketing at its best, by using ambience advertising, by using mall activations, by using on-ground interactive content for a particular brand. So such endeavors are now, Oreo is doing it. A lot of other brands are also involved in such endeavors by placing this primacy on, relationship marketing in today's times. So these are the four major concepts which make up the umbrella of integrated marketing communication. And when you look at the idea of whether integrated marketing communication descended on us as a radical idea, or whether it evolved and organically grew as a progressive idea in the Indian marketplace, is something which we need to also, look into. So while looking into the history of IMC, we see that, over a period of time, it is not a rapid, radical spread of something which happened to, replace advertising. Advertising is not replaced, or public relations is not replaced by integrated marketing communication. It's simply that the marketplace totally changed in the last 20 years. And there is a shift from the product centric approach to a consumer centric approach. We are ushering in a consumer era today. And when I say that, what I mean is, earlier, if I'm talking about a particular product, let's say I'm talking about Parker Pen, then in my communication, I was talking about the fluidity of writing, how it can retain ink, it does not spill, it does not smudge, the shape and size of the pen. So I was looking at the product, the functional benefits of the product, and I was weaving all my concepts around it. And advertising was doing its job to its best to inform the people about the functional benefits of a particular product. But what has happened is now, beyond the point, how far can you differentiate one brand from the other? A pen is a pen is a pen. So today, when you are creating consumer-centric approaches, and consumer-centric approaches means you create this wholesome communication around a particular brand in which you create emotions of love. Someone gifting a pen, let's say I get my first paycheck and I'm gifting a Parker pen to my father, right? So you're using lot of behavioral, lot of affective dimensions in your brand communications to create this holistic narrative, an alternative narrative, which is not based on features of the product, price of the product, or economy of a particular product per se. So this shift of towards consumer centrism, or the advent of the consumer era, naturalizes the progression from advertising to something which is beyond advertising, which requires more than advertising in campaign planning. Not just that, we've seen advances in IT, which we've talked about, and not just advances in IT or communication technology, which have been the bedrock of industrial revolution 3.0 and of course 4.0 as well. There is a fragmentation of media which is happening. Media is also becoming highly specialized. So you have media which has a lot of genres, it breaks up into different sets of classes. You have n number of radio channels, again theme based radio channels. You have different kinds of television formats. So this specialized formats in print, electronic, and digital media platforms is creating the need for widening your understanding of the target audiences. No longer can you create a campaign for a set target audiences. Today, you have to create a campaign for variegated or rolling target audiences, let's say from one market to another at different points in time. And that requires an integrated approach than a silo-based approach. Consumer, like I said, is empowered and is active, and that goes a long way in making sure that IMC becomes the concept of the future. What has also happened in the past few years is that there is a lot of advertising clutter. Advertising was a match made in heaven for television. So a lot of brands, they blindly started doing a lot of television advertising, so much so that even in the 4-minute television break in a program, let's say in a daily soap opera, different brands, up to 20 brands will advertise in the 4-minute slot, wherein they are losing eyeballs to each other. So there was a lot of advertising clutter. So wherever there is a lot of advertising clutter, one of the efforts to cut a clutter is by creating differential value positioning through integrated marketing communication. That whatever communication we do for one brand idea, and that one brand idea will yield to 1% or 2% increase in brand equity, which is measurable, a proposition unlike any other advertising effectiveness matrices which existed in the past. It is an evolutionary concept which has evolved critically in India in the past few years because of the shifting channel power also. The control over messages, the control over media, and the control over masses or markets has shifted from this identified sponsor, right, or the client agency relationship which existed for long, to others. So there are many other channels in power, in the hierarchy of power in communications, which today hold enormous capacity to influence communications or to introduce various kinds of communication. And that has led to a rapid progression towards IMC from advertising. Desire for greater accountability is also quite critical. The clients these days are no longer willing to turn a blind eye to an advertising agency's indulgence of creating funny ads which make people laugh, but do not really do much to a brand. So at the end of the day, today clients are asking in no uncertain terms, but what is the tangible output? What is the measurable aspect? So can you give us results? So what are results? Don't tell us that you were able to make ads popular. Ads can be popular, but how have the brands fared after the ads, right? So whatever you've created, whatever content you create, advertising or no advertising, you just have to make your choices, your communication tools accountable to the brand indices or the brand matrices which today exist across the world. So this is also something which has brought in more permanence or more legitimacy towards integrated marketing communication and reduced the reliance on advertising campaigns or public relation campaigns or publicity, or for that matter even standalone direct marketing campaigns, which was such an important part of a time when Oriflame and Avon and all these personal care chains who were hugely involved in direct selling were doing. So all of that has now given way to this concept, which is integrated marketing communications. And that leads us to the definition of integrated marketing communication. You can see it's a natural progression in which it is a concept that recognizes the added value. It is the added value of a comprehensive plan which evaluates the strategic roles of a variety of communication disciplines and combines these disciplines to provide clarity, consistency, and maximum communication impact. So, what we are factoring in is the recognition that integrated marketing communication is not just a communication process, it is also a business process, which takes into account the vision of the producer, the manufacturer, or the corporate organization which it is serving. It is an expanded model of brand communication which integrates, it is not leaving advertising out of the kitty, but it integrates advertising with other forms of marketing and promotional mix to create push and pull strategies so that the defined objectives are well taken care of. It banks heavily on the principle of measurability. In fact, Donald Schultz, who's seen as the father of integrated marketing communication, advocates the IMC model, which is based on three pillars. That is the result oriented, the audience centric, the channel centric, and the communication centric approach, in which the measurability of the results, the quantifiable value which a communication creates out after it is completed its span is of great importance, is what defines integrated marketing communications today. It uses a variety of disciplines, it includes a lot of stakeholders, it nurtures consumer loyalty. It is, in that sense, what a wonderful way of moving away from the classical advertising function of brand awareness and the traditional public relations function of creating image, favorable image for a particular brand or managing images for an organization, to creating a hybrid or a blended model of awareness, image, advocacy, along with behavioral responses. So, what are the behavioral responses which result in some kind of brand value after all this awareness, after all this advocacy and image management has already taken place? So, in that sense, behavioral responses are a defining component of integrated marketing communication, which includes a lot of consistency and coordination of messages based on strategic approach to planning. So that is how we look at integrated marketing communications in an attempt to define it. When I look at the contributions of various scholars across the world, I see that it all started in 1991 with a study in United States. The study was conducted by the Northwestern University along with Advertising Association of Agencies. And it was basically to study whether integrated marketing communication can be a lasting phenomena. What kind of relationship will it have with traditional advertising? So, and this study was a study, it was a mixed method study in which it was conducted with the practitioners, people who were practicing communications for brands. And it was also a study which accumulated consumer responses to the newer kinds of integrations which people were witnessing for brands like Tide, for brands like Pepsi in United States. Now, once United States undertook this study in the early 90s, other countries soon followed with their understanding of how far can IMC proceed as a concept. And we saw a lot of studies coming in New Zealand, in Thailand, in Australia, and even in India. Not though from the academic side, but a lot of studies from the practitioner side were coming in who were trying to understand this new industry, the new market landscape. So these studies, and they resulted in creating a scope for integrated marketing communication. And all of these studies then brought to us that how this integration takes place, that largely there are 7 levels of integration. There is a vertical objectives integration, the different objectives of advertising, PR, direct marketing, they have to converge. That objective, at the end of the day, there's only one goal of IMC campaign. So whatever motives you have separately have to find one common minimum denominator, and that makes up the one common goal for an IMC campaign. There is functional integration in terms of what are the various manifestations of advertising and PR. There is a marketing mix integration that you have to create a marketing mix which includes 8 Ps now. Gone are the days of Philip Kotler's 4 Ps or Jerome McCarthy's 5 Ps. Now we are living in the times of 8 Ps. So how do we look at the newer set of 3 Ps which have been added in the marketing mix or the communication mix? And this also includes a lot of thematic unity in design. Let's not make a poster which looks very different from a billboard, or let's not make a billboard which is very different from a web banner on a website. So all of them have to have a kind of a creative design integration, which is required in order to present this unified holistic concept of 360-degree branding. And besides that, what is also critical is financial integration. That whatever, today we do not have these concepts of advertising expenditure and public relations expenditure. Let's come up with an expenditure for a campaign, and those expenditures can be then broken into input or action plans which are required for, let's say, media buying or creative surcharges required for each communication conduit or vehicle as the need be. So there's a financial integration which also comes into picture here. Now that all of that has created a very profitable environment for all three, for the advertisers, for the agencies, as well as for the audiences, because it leads to a lot of reduction of media waste. A lot of media which we did not know today is utilized properly. Accountability, coordination, and centralization has created a lot of consistency in marketing communication campaigns. And all of this at the end of the day creates an increased impact. And this increased impact is factored in favorable audience response, which goes a long way in creating this loyalty, this consumer equity. Every brand equity aims to create a consumer equity later on at some stage. And this consumer equity is created because of increased message impact, and the creativity which goes into integrated marketing communication is far more fruitful or meaningful as compared to the creative concepting which we were doing for the independent wings of advertising, etc. Just have a look at the various elements of integrated marketing communication. We have various elements, like I've been telling you: advertising, personal selling, public relations, sales promotion, direct marketing, and so on and so forth. In fact, these days we have another set, a lot of innovations which we are going to talk about in this session later, but it includes a lot of events as well. So a lot of events are included in public relations, but some of the events are, mega events or hallmark events are independent events which are carried out for various objectives, and they are also part of integrated marketing communication. Many a times, all of these elements, they come together as an event, and that particular event becomes this integrated marketing communication, that single voice campaign. That too is happening with various brands. I've seen Infosys doing it, even other technology brands like Wipro. They come up with a particular event, a 2-day, 3-day event, and that event encompasses all the elements of the IMC mix just to talk about one deliverable or one particular message or campaign theme. So this is the basic foundation, the ground on which IMC is, based. From here onwards, we move on to, so what are the innovations which are happening? What are the newer developments which are happening in the world of IMC? So when I look at what are the newer innovations which are happening, I start off with understanding the innovations happening at the industry level. Something which is being now seen increasingly, especially in Western Europe, but it is also a concept which is fast coming to India, is the appointment of chief performance officer. One of the variables in branding is brand performance, measurement of brand performance. Now, measurement of brand performance is ideally done if there is an integrated marketing communication campaign. You can't do that if you're only measuring the effectiveness of, say, an advertisement, or measuring the effectiveness of a PR activity, or a direct marketing activity. So that is not possible in that sense. The whole idea is that we are going to create integrated marketing communication campaigns in the future. And that is why we require a chief performance officer who's going to see whether the brand objectives or are met properly, are driven properly, and then subsequently met properly by the marketing communications which has been created by different agencies or different consultancies. So this is a one change which is a sign of the times to come. Another thing, of course, has been something which has been happening, but is now quite is being done on quite a rapid pace, and that is acquisition and mergers in the communication industry. There are a lot of mergers in the communication industry which are happening, which is then, because there's a lot of merger, then these collaborations, they require a coordinated effort of various communication vehicles. They do not fall back on specialized or expert or functional standalone mixes. They would rather want a mixed, an IMC mixed planned and strategy, which is ideal for their kind of goals and objectives or intentions which they have for their future. So acquisitions and mergers in that sense is also an innovation, not like innovation per se in terms of a disruption, but in innovation nonetheless in the industry for the last few years. There is data-driven communication which is happening in the industry. A lot of emphasis is on prediction, is on contextual understanding of behavioral patterns, is on mapping, is on analytics. So all of that is because there's a lot of thrust on analytics, as in what do the numbers say? What does the big data say? What does the data communicate? How do we communicate with data? Right. So all of these things are then driving home the point that it is measurability or result driven, which is initiated by integrated marketing communication, and not not independently by advertising, PR, or for that matter even direct marketing. Even though sales promotion is result driven or is quantifiable, but the amount of sales promotion we do is intermittent, is not continuous, it is not throughout the year. So the amount of sales promotion we do is quite limited to make that kind of clear-cut relationship between response, impact, and effectiveness, so to speak of. So these are some of the innovations in industry which are important to be noted. And besides that, there are some creative executions which have found a lot of currency, a lot of significance in the world of integrated marketing. What we see is this rise of moment marketing. Of course, there can be questions raised on how, why, and what of moment marketing. But the way moment marketing is spreading in the Indian communication landscape is a phenomena to observe at the moment. In the last 2 through 3 years, almost every special happening, every occurrence, whether it's the Tokyo Olympics or whether it is the farmer protest, or even your routine news, your everyday news, somebody's won a particular award, somebody's been given a Padma Shri, or someone's won a Bharat Ratna. Every moment, every special day becomes a marketing idea, And that campaign idea is encapsulated in the forms of memes, in the form of illustrations, in the forms of tweets, in the forms of digital advertisements, in the forms of short videos. So lots of different kinds of content is created in an integrated manner to make these moments. Some may argue that it is simply an attempt to monetize moments for the brands. But what I can see at the moment is this particular trend of moment marketing lasting for a couple of years, because the kind of topicality it has is able to create a natural connect with the consumers, and they're responding to moment marketing in a big way. Lots of social listening and conversation analysis tells us that moment marketing not only grabs the eyeballs but increases the engagement. And if a particular campaign idea increases engagement, it is creative and it is perhaps here to stay, or at least not a fad, so to speak of. So this is one aspect of integrated marketing communication in terms of creativity, which we need to pay more attention to. And besides that, we also have to look at the rise of hashtag campaigns. These hashtag campaigns have almost replaced the traditional punchline or the tagline, which was very famous, isko laga dala to jhinga lala, or thanda matlab coca cola, ek baar khaoge to khate reh jaoge, no one can eat just one. They used to raise a lot of memorability. They were responsible for keeping the brand alive in the minds of the buying prospects. But that has now, in this world of integration, made way for hashtags. Hashtag the dose we need. So hashtag Karlo Harmadan Fateh. So these hashtags are encapsulating the IMC campaigns. And in this particular example, if you look at this particular hashtag campaign, which was initiated by a bakery, this is the Baker's Dozen. It's a bakery which initiated a campaign in order to, present itself as a responsible citizen, as a responsible corporate citizen. In many ways, it can be, seen as a brand outreach campaign. That is when on 12th May 2021, via digital platforms or social platforms like Instagram and Facebook, the campaign was initiated, which encouraged every Indian above the age of 18 to vaccinate by offering a small reward from their bakery. That if you are vaccinated, if you get yourself vaccinated, we'll incentivize, and you will be getting a cake free, you will be getting a cookie or a freshly baked garlic bread free. So the bakery was trying to incentivize, outreach of a particular concept, in this case, go get the vaccines done. So it was also a campaign which was hugely supportive of the government initiatives. So we can see a lot of collaboration, we can see a lot of coordination, we can see a lot of consistency of messages which exist across the stakeholders, whether it is the government, whether it is the non-governmental organization, and also the corporate organizations now coming into the picture. So these hashtag campaigns, which signal at times advocacy, brand advocacy, hashtag campaigns, which are simply brand response campaigns, sometimes, in response to a crisis, these hashtag campaigns can be campaigns which are activism campaigns, brand activism campaigns, like, for instance, Happy to Bleed campaign. So these campaigns are now an increasing part of our lives in a time where consumer is engaged, interested, and empowered. Besides that, another thing which has happened when we talk about creativity in integrated marketing communication is the rise of the social experiment. I won't say that social experiments were not being done during the times of advertising. A lot of advertising stories were created by conducting social experiments. But to make a social experiment, a campaign idea in an integrated marketing communication is something which is happening of late. It is novel, and it is an idea which has a lot of vantage. Now, this particular campaign, if you look at your screens, this particular campaign is the divide campaign. The idea is the divide between men and women. This particular campaign was launched by Paytm on Women's Day 2021, that is 8th of March. And the idea was the divide, as in here, various men and women, young boys and girls, they were asked certain questions and they were asked to either step forward or step backwards. Have you done domestic? Did you wash utensils, when you were, let's say, 18 years of age? Or did you ever clean the kitchen when you were 10 years old? So you take a step forward or you take a step backward. So it's a wonderful way to create gender literacy and to address the issue of stereotypes, typification, and gender gaps in the society by a digital payments brand. So, and of course, if you look at the IMC mix here, it all started with the digital long format advertisement, a long ad, which was interactive. And then later the ad was viral on various social platforms, including the official handles. And this was also followed by a lot of below the line activations which were happening. So a very interesting campaign, which is based on a social experiment, is now gaining traction in integrated spaces or integrated marketing. More such campaigns are likely to come, and that would make branding more credible, branding more sustainable, branding something which more authentic. And that is something which every brand craves for at the moment. So as far as the media is concerned, innovations in media bring in that you move away from your traditional choice of the IMC mix, which included advertising, PR, direct marketing, personal selling, sales promotion, or event management. And that now includes a very important aspect of interactive marketing, that whatever content or communication you're creating is all based on synchronicity, interactivity, and reciprocity or mutuality of communication, which is happening all the time. Right. So this is something which can be exhibited through the rise of content marketing, which we've seen. And brands are thriving or digging deeper into the world of content marketing, be it the food aggregators like Zomato. I remember Zomato some time back. They started out their content marketing campaign, which is integrated in nature, with one line which says, guys, kabhi kabhi ghar ka khana bhi kha lena chahiye. Now, this is very interesting because in this particular campaign, they are propagating demarketing. They are a food aggregator, they are a food delivery application. But what they're saying is that you should cook at home as well. So the idea of demarketing through content or creating content around demarketing is an interesting pickup. It has been picked up by other brands like Maruti Suzuki, other brands like Oreo. So all of these other brands are also now creating a lot of content which is not just traditional in terms of writing a feature or writing or giving an interview or writing a specialized article or making a marketing supplement, but creating content in tiny tales, in rabbles, in the microblogs, in the limited word limit of microblogs is something which is really picking up in the campaign. So these campaigns have become the new norm in the social media active world of today. Not just the content marketing. What we've seen and where the pandemic has hugely contributed when it comes to innovations is the rise of the interactive podcast. So podcasts per se have really, grown. Lot of podcasts we've seen on consumer behavior, lot of podcasts we are seeing on advertising concepts. But one of the most interesting podcasts which I found in my quest to know more about the perishability or the eventual future of IMC, or for that matter, any of the verticals, is Advertising is Dead. So Varun Dugirala is doing this Advertising is Dead podcast, in which various provocative questions are raised with regards to the fall of advertising, the rise of integrated marketing communication, or the staccato nature of PR, the limitations of direct marketing. So this thought-provoking series, and by the way, it has more than 100 episodes. So many episodes directed towards market segmentation, towards brand positioning, towards creating equity. In many ways, tell you that we are now set towards integrated communications, and that we might not find advertising alone or public relations alone a preferred choice for our brands in the future, and that IMC is the future and IMC is here to stay. So, podcast is another innovation which we can live with, besides an innovation in ambush marketing. Now, ambush marketing is not new at all. A lot of communication on ambush marketing, lot of ethical and unethical, manifestations of ambush marketing have been debated in the past as well. But we do find it as an innovative incumbent source of marketing communications in the promotional mix, and especially when a particular brand, a giant brand like Pepsi or Coca-Cola, wins a bid of a mega sporting event like an Olympic, what would the poor 20, 30 other bidders who lost the bid do? So a Paddy Powell or a Nike very smartly ambushes the direct identified sponsor, and uses its ambassadors or its celebrity endorsers to push the brand in the public eye during that particular event. And these possibilities are increasing as ambush marketing moves away from not just being a coattail ambush or direct ambushing. It moves away from the traditional billboard ambush to ambush venues, creating ambush merchandise stories, digital ambush. So all of that is also happening, and newer campaigns are finding this innovations invariably as part of their creative toolkits. But of course, I'd like to reiterate that there is a lot of ethical problem which exists with the use of ambush marketing. So before we get set to use ambush marketing, we need to be very clear with the code of ethics of that particular country, and then only can we engage with a practice like ambush, which essentially belongs to the marketing warfare, or which is a subset of guerrilla marketing to begin with. Ambush does generate a lot of buzz. Ambush is able to hijack the consumer's mind to quite an extent. But then again, we have to keep on looking at what is legal, what is ethical, what should be doable, what is responsible, and what is not. So be very clear on that when you're using ambush as a technique. And that brings me to the end of the IMC story of the day. And I end my story by presenting, an integration of how creativity, how innovation defines or drives the future of integrated marketing communication. And that story is the case study of Uber, इसे अपनी ही गाड़ी समझो campaign. Now, this particular campaign about 3 years back was initiated when the brand identified in its SWOT analysis, Uber, the rider app, it identified that people are very hesitant in accepting Uber as a personal mobility partner. That people are not, willing to hire the Uber cab for various reasons. Some find it unsafe, some find it not reliable when it comes to reaching somewhere on time, some find it overpriced. So there were different reasons which emerged out of the market research. So they did a SWOT analysis, and the problem that was identified is acceptance was less. There was low acceptance of Uber as an app. And then they started the IMC campaign. The IMC campaign began with brainstorming. First of all, people sat together of various disciplines, and this is what I'm talking about. Here, it's not just the creative and the media and the account planning department which is sitting together. No, here, people from marketing, from finance, people from the creative communication department, people from production. So people from different areas of expertise, market research, They are all coming together for a brainstorming session, and they are trying to identify one common idea. And that one common idea was preserved by, first thing to do is integrate technology with marketing competence. That you have to create a competent marketing strategy which is based on technology driven expertise. So when you do your app, redo the application first. First of all, you have to redesign the application so that it becomes extremely, friendly for the users to book, and it saves time, convenience, comfort, and consumable preference in terms of economy drives a user towards a rider application. So this was something which was found to be the most important idea on which the campaign idea can then be based. And then the communication, that what campaign idea or communication idea will be created, was then started. The campaign theme was identified as Apnapan in this particular campaign. So again, like I said, it's an IMC campaign. So all of advertising, all of its BTL, all of whatever they do, events, will have only one idea, and that is one theme, and that is Apnapan. So the objective of this particular campaign, IMC campaign, was to create everyday brand relevance and to frame personal mobility. You have to reframe the personal mobility and to create a brand connect with the prospective buyers. Primary research led to, what kind of appeals or what kind of formats and storytelling will be used. So they did a lot of research. They listened to a lot of stories by real-time riders. What were their experiences? What were their personal narratives? What were the different gaps they found? Emotions, logic, behavior, everything was factored in these driver rider stories. And soon the first television commercial of Apni Hi Gadi Samjo rolled out. Right now, this particular television commercial rolled out, which was followed by a digital first approach. First of all, this TVC was introduced, or it was, started out on Facebook and YouTube. They were the primary channels. Later, television was used in order to broaden the reach, and radio was used in order to, connect with the commuters. So radio was a very important medium here. So a lot of dissemination of these rider driver stories happened through radio, and it was a resounding success in that sense. Another notable aspect of this IMC campaign was this particular campaign was, launched in multiple languages. It was not just in Hindi, because Uber is available everywhere. So in order to create a pan India one message voice, various languages were used in this particular campaign: Hindi, Marathi, Bengali, Tamil, and Telugu, in order to widen the consumer base. So this is one of the examples of an integrated marketing communication campaign where different media, multiple markets, different target audiences, and different channels of communication are converging to find one common objective, or to achieve one common objective with one campaign theme. Thank you.